Welcome back to In the Crosshairs, presented by Line Sniper. Ken Barkley, Lockie Lockerson, along with Dr. Odds. Make sure to put a Z at the end of that. That's very, very important. Proper spelling, always appreciated. But what I want to do with this final segment, there are what I would call not taboo subjects, but touchy subjects for a lot of people who bet professionally, who bet semi-professionally, or who are even interested in the space. And one of them is a discussion of touting and a discussion of selling picks. Morally, is that a smart idea? Financially, is that a smart idea? What are the pitfalls of that? How does society view it? All those kind of things. And those have all been wrapped up, I think, in a recent story that has kind of developed over the last few months, which is a guy named Michael Schwimmer, who has sort of developed this company, which he refers to as Jambos. He's a contributor for another media outlet. He does some other media work, and basically. And Doc, obviously correct me if I'm wrong after this, but basically the concept was that touting, which is the selling of picks for money, could be done in a way that was sort of morally correct and also financially responsible for the people that were buying them. This was a product that people would both want and benefit from, and that's generally those are two things that are not the case when you're selling gambling picks for a variety of reasons. And recently, it's sort of come out that is not going so well for a variety of reasons, and that the company is going to stop giving away picks, and this is sort of kind of folded basically, under pressure from a lot of people, and as a result of a lot of things going on in the market. So kind of take this wherever way you want to start, but just kind of your thoughts overall on this topic and how Jambos kind of fits into that niche.
Look, all credit to Michael Schwimmer. He was a very successful baseball player. He now invests in minor league players. He's made a big name for himself in sort of like the new age sports analytics. Let's help people out, and he's very well connected and well funded. All credit to him, and obviously he's a great salesman, because I don't know how he's gotten funding from all these legit Wall Street finance guys for an enterprise like this. So the entire thing started, I think, and I'm not all that familiar to this because I'm not on Twitter that often, but from what I read and from the PR blitzes that he's done, and this has been pretty substantial since August or September around there, is that he wanted to be a more responsible tout, right? So your average tout, is like on
sort of
used to be on
oxymoron.
Vegas, and sort of an oxymoron, right? No. Absolutely. It's sort of a walking contradiction in and of itself. So your average tout started with Vegas Insider and with all these other different aggregator websites, and basically they give out picks that you bet, you pay them, and if you're down on the year, then you're sort of out of money. And when they have negative feedback from that, they say, well, if you're out money here, we're going to extend your subscription. We'll give you three months or whatever. That's like the typical makeup for losing bets. And, Michael Schwimmer looked at this and said, hey, that's not good enough. We want to be responsible that if our picks lose, we will refund you money. You're going to pay $3,000 for the subscription for 17 weeks, so you get a decent sample of bets. So this is not something where you pay for a week and then see if you're up or down, because basically that's flipping a coin. Even for professional bettors, it's a coin flip as to whether I'm going to be up this week or next week. So he says 17 weeks, decent sample size, probably over 1,000. Definitely over 1,000 bets. You pay us $3K, and if we lose at the end of the 17 months, we will pay you back $10K. So that's a 1.33x bet, basically. So he's giving you 3.3. So he's giving you basically 3 and a third times your money back if the picks lose. Now, on the surface, this seems very responsible, and he's going to keep everything super open. He's going to use widely available numbers. And then we realized he was giving, as we said, overnight. And then I think people realized they were giving overnight totals, which are capped at 250 on Bookmaker, which is the book that he purports to use his lines from. So, okay, he's using widely available lines that are on Bookmaker, but he's doing them overnight when the limit is $250, but he recommends you bet them at $300. Now that goes to another issue. When a tout recommends that you bet a certain unit amount, one, you got to make sure you're rich enough to do that. Two, if he's ever down, you need to make sure you have enough bankroll to sustain the losses, right? Because what if he goes down 10 units? If you don't have at least $3,000 or $4,000 in there, then you're out and you're not even able to make your losses back. So Michael Schwimmer did not address really how much money you needed. He just said you're going to bet $300 a unit, and then he recommended bets where the limit was not even $300. Now, there's no shame in betting extra totals, right? I bet extra photos, I bet extra games. My play of the day today is an extra game Stony Brook per month. You know, overnight, that limit is 250. Now, there's no shame in doing that, but when you purport to be transparent, when you purport to be, I'm going to be the better Tao, I'm so sickened by, I think he's written on cheese, on his cheeseburger, whatever that new finance aggregator channel is, he was saying that, like, you know, all touts are snake oil salesmen. I want to be better than that. When you come from a platform like that, you simply cannot recommend $300 bets when the limit on the book that you specifically said you're going to use is 250. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. So that's one. And then two, there's some shoddy record keeping. There's a lot on Twitter. There's like, I mean, the thread is just all over the place. I can't keep track of it that much. But there's shoddy record keeping is what I'm told about it. And I think Michael Swimmer has not really addressed any of this. Now, he went down like around like 30 units in the middle of the season, wouldn't really address how much money you needed to have in the bank to be able to keep up with losses, to be able to keep winning after that. And then he ended up on this like ridiculous heater of I think like 30 units in 2 weeks and came back ultimately positive. So now he is on Twitter just this week, or I think last week, giving his year-end statement saying that he's not going to tout anymore and sell picks anymore because it's unsustainable for his subscribers. He's saying that his subscribers are using the picks so much and people are betting so much on them that the lines are moving, and so people can't get the lines that they want, which is another, you know, tout pick. I mean, it's easy for me to win games if Duke is minus 12 and I'm telling you I bet Duke minus 10, which was never available. It's easy to win games like that. He's saying the reason he can't sell anymore is because those lines are moving too fast. But they're not moving too fast because people are betting them. They're moving too fast because you're recommending them at a time when the limit is $250. So now he's spinning this entire thing into, I ended the year positive based on what I think is luck. I mean, sure, making 30 units in 2 weeks, probably some skill there. It's probably not pure luck. It's difficult to see positive variance like that. But overall, you're not running off that much money in that short of a time period. So he ended up positive over because of luck. He hasn't had needed to pay any guarantee back, so we don't even know if his guarantee would have been good, right? It's one thing to sign a contract and then say you're going to give me 10K, but it's another thing to enforce that contract. And if I'm some average Joe living in Montana, I can't enforce a contract that's backed by Washington. I can't enforce a contract that's backed by like a Wall Street startup. Like, what chances do I have in court against this guy? Maybe I can't even take it to court. So we don't know if he was going to pay. We don't know if he was going to hold up to his guarantee. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt there and say he probably would have paid out. He made such a big PR blitz out of it. He couldn't possibly not. But then you can't come back and say, I need to shut this down now because it was too sharp. The information was too sharp that we can't get any bets down at the proper line. No, the information was so sharp at the overnight limit that everything moved because I can move that limit. You know, a monkey who can click a keyboard can move that limit. That's the reason you're shutting down. And then across from all the shoddy record keeping, there's a lot there that can be unpacked later on if we can delve more into it. I don't know the story completely, but this whole thing is to me, it's a joke. And he's floated it now, and then he leaves with this saying, our company is only 5% selling picks. Well, I'm sorry, because your company just got started in August, and the whole thing has been selling picks. So I don't know what you're saying now, saying I'm only showing now 5% of my business. My question to you, Michael Swimmer, if you ever watch this, is what is the other 95%? Can we please see what Jambos is going to do next? That's the story in a nutshell for me. And I think I'm glad it's over because it used to get a bunch of PR blitzes, and I was tired of seeing this guy, you know, on Bloomberg News, people that don't do any vetting, right? Like these journalists, I don't know what they do because they just think they take his word for it, right? I'm going to pay 10K back. Okay, cool. I'm going to shut down because I'm too sharp. Okay, cool. So I don't know what is going on in the sports journalism business because it doesn't seem like anyone's actually being a journalist. I'm glad it's over, but if Michael Swimmer wants to address any of this, hey, look, we're all ears. Like, I wish you were the thing you wanted to be, but unfortunately, we haven't seen that. And now you're saying you're too sharp for the market. All right, man, go make a living off of betting. Like, why are you still running your startup? Like, you should be making a living off of betting. If you're so sharp and you get so much money down and that many people acclimated your product, you should be making a living betting, not going on, you know, Bloomberg News and trying to do PR blitzes. So that's it in a nutshell. I don't really like it. I'm glad it's over. I don't think we're ever going to talk about it again.
We're going to talk about it for a few
We're
minutes.
going to talk about Line Sniper is going to be talking about it for a little bit. I don't think the world in general is really going to think about it much anymore unless Michael Swimmer comes back with his second new thing and spins it, whatever. I mean, he's a good salesman. All credit to him. It's incredibly important to be a good salesman and to be able to raise money, but not in a way that you're going to be very disingenuous about what you're saying and the goal you're trying to achieve. That's a deal breaker for me. I can't get behind that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, obviously, a lot to unpack there. I think that kind of goes without saying. That was there's and not all of it. A lot of it well founded and sort of and it all makes a lot of sense. I think for people, especially for people that have been following the story, I think all of those things make a ton of sense. A few thoughts for me just to sort of unpack some of that stuff. So to me, people like him are uninteresting. And what I mean by that, that's actually not an insult necessarily in terms of, I'm sure he's probably a very nice person and personally he might be very interesting, but his role is uninteresting to me. And the reason it's uninteresting is that his role is to be a salesman. And when somebody's role is to be a salesman in this space, you can't learn anything from them. And, for people like us, I think it's sort of a blanket statement for both of us, but for people that are in the space, learning how to bet and learning how to beat markets and all those kinds of things, we're trying to learn. We're trying to absorb as much information as possible and, affect our processes and make them smarter and be more successful. There's nothing someone like that can teach us. So to me, he has no value in this space. That's like the sort of thing number one, where it's like, this story is interesting on a lot of levels. Like, I think stories of fraud are always incredibly interesting, and there are a lot of them because people are inherently greedy. But just on the surface of what can I learn from this? This is a tale as old as time, not just in the accounting space. This is someone who is attempting to sell something that has no value, but you can spin it in such a way where it becomes valuable. I mean, this is New Coke. This is everything. This is capitalism. This is all kinds of stuff. There's nothing inherently interesting about this. At its heart, it's a failed company. That's all it is. It's a company that started and now isn't a new company. So it's just sort of, so on the surface, my first thought when I was looking back at this is it's uninteresting. You can't, if your goal is to be good at sports betting or you're interested in sports betting, this story actually does nothing for you from a standpoint of getting better or getting smarter. So, I would rather talk to his data team and his scientists and his, coders and his, I can learn stuff from them. I can learn information, they're valuable, they're interesting the same way you're interesting. The same way our discussion is interesting because we find things about our process that other people can find and make smarter. So in a way, that's what I mean when I say in general, he's just uninteresting. There's nothing about him that makes me learn stuff. So that was kind of my overarching theme with him. With the company, it's sort of a classic thing with touting, and this is, I think people who are familiar with, being entrepreneurial and starting companies, and let's be honest, this is a new company. The idea of starting a company, one of the reasons you do it is not just that you think there's a need for the product that you have, but you believe that the company can scale on a very large level. So if you start a company, that makes widgets, you're believing, I'm looking around my desk right now, okay, there's a glass jar on my desk. If I think I can make the best glass jars, I'm gonna guess the market for glass jars is probably billions of dollars. And I could probably make, a lot of money if I made a better glass jar than everyone else. Well, the problem with starting a company whose sole purpose is selling sports information is that there's no scalability whatsoever in the model. And when you talk about selling picks and approaches and philosophies that people who do that will take, one thing that you notice very, very quickly is there is generally a very large upfront charge for sports information. And you might be saying okay, well, that just means it's really valuable, or that just means there's a barrier to entry so that only a certain amount of people sign up or whatever. Well, no, actually, one of the main reasons why sports picks are so expensive is that they fail. And when they fail, the person who sells the picks to you already has the money. If I sold, picks for $499 a month, my implication in doing that is you're probably actually only buying picks for a month. Because otherwise, I'd sell them for $99 a month and grow my business and get more customers and become more famous and all of those things that you would do in a normal fucking company. So selling sports information, it's inverted scalability. As other companies would go up and become more profitable and add more products and add more marketing and add more everything, sports picks actually work the opposite way, which is, if you're selling picks, you would want all the money up front because either one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to lose naturally, which is to say you're going to lose because you have no advantage, or you're going to lose because your advantage is then going to be sort of understood by everyone in such a way where it vanishes. So one of those two things is going to happen. That is a certainty. It's just which one. And I'll give you a personal example. So I basically came up with a sort of a hypothesis to bet hockey first periods is like this derivative that I think is crazy mispriced compared to other stuff. And, you know, I like showed my work and, you know, basically for free, and like people could come and like download a spreadsheet and input their own numbers and see the percentage edges and see all the background and everything. And this happened last year. I would bet openers, put out the spreadsheet, the numbers would move like 30, 40, 50 cents and settle on my numbers every single night for like 3 months. And like, that's what I'm talking about. Like the information, once it gets to as many people as possible, like nobody else is getting the opener that I'm getting. Like that opener goes away, like right away when I bet. Like, no, it's, again, just think about it intuitively. Like if everyone's trying to bet the same thing, like the number doesn't just stay there. Like markets are in motion, markets are fluid. So I think for people that are kind of like new to the space, it's sort of like, well, what do you like in this game? Be like, well, I like the Patriots, or I like, you know, the Titans or whatever. Be like, well, that's actually an incorrect answer. Like Patriots and Titans aren't correct answers to the question. It's like, I like Patriots at, you know, +3 -1 or 10 between them. And, you know, it's price. Price guides everything. Team name doesn't guide anything. And, you know, price changes. Price fluctuates based on the balance of money, based on the sharpness of the person making the bet. So again, just to kind of tie this back to the second point, like you start a business because you think it can scale. The people who started Line Sniper think that it can scale because it can become a more successful content company than the other content companies in the space, and that there's more money to be made by being a successful content company. Like the more people learn about Line Sniper and what we offer, it's not like Line Sniper becomes less valuable and we're like unable to tape this show anymore. Like, or we're unable for me to write an article or put up a spreadsheet or have an idea about how to beat a certain market. Like those ideas are actually going to expand. We're going to hire more people. We're going to do all these things. So just from a business model standpoint, starting a company whose sole focus is, you know, sports information and sports picks with no background about how you're coming up with the picks, by the way, which would be the most important thing. Just the picks themselves, it's reverse scalability, which in sort of capitalism and businesses and stuff is like the exact opposite of what would work and be successful. So I know this kind of went a little long-winded, but like those are my two things. Sort of, I have a main point about him, sort of about being uninteresting, but also about the company as just like it can never work. As like there's a 0% chance this is a certainty that companies like this are going to fail.
Right, and not even going to fail, but just like you said, from the get-go, it's a failed idea because what is the end goal here, right? And I'm sure Michael Stromer has a different end goal. I think, in fact, in some interview, he's already said his eventual goal is to provide information to teams and to prove that his betting model is good enough to for teams to use, which is just opens another can of worms because I can beat a model, just because I can beat college basketball.
Pivoting from one idea to the other. Like,
yeah,
I'm not good at this, but I can be good at this,
they're
but I can be good at this, but I can be good at this.
And they're absolutely unrelated things. Just because I can beat the college basketball market, I can't coach basketball. I don't know anything about that. I don't think my data is going to be that useful. Well, maybe a little bit useful, but I don't think it's going to be that useful to like be able to advise and consult and sell to a team.
Right, for like the Houston Rockets or something. Right, yeah, that's right.
Like it's not going to be that useful. Like if I go to Stony Brook today, they're worried about winning the game, right? They want to get a better conference schedule record. They're worried about
Please go to Stony Brook, by the way. Please just go there and let's see what happens.
Yeah, what am I going to do? What am I going to do when I go to Stony Brook's coaches? Hey, man, I think we're going to lose by 6. Not 9.
Right.
We're gonna be like, I don't care. How do you tell us like where are the X's and O's?
You seen this true shooting percentage? Shit, this is good.
Right. Yeah. Like I'm sure they have that on hand. Everyone buys KenPom and they can do their own thing. They're gonna do their own arithmetic to it. But just because my Stony Brook +9 cashes because Vermont won by 5, that doesn't help Stony Brook at all because they didn't win. It's 0-1. So I don't understand this whole disconnect between we eventually want to help a team and consult numbers for a team, because you do not do that by proving models. You do not do that by proving you're a good bettor. You do that by doing, you know, what people at front offices do and actually running numbers for the team. It's extremely different. Anyway, there's just so much pivoting and so many moving targets. I'm this, I'm that, I'm gonna be better. You know what? You know what the funny thing is? This whole thing would have been okay, and at least personally, I would have been okay if he just came out and he said, I want to tout. I want to sell stuff because I want to prove one day I want to consult for teams. That's totally fine. That is respectable. You're a good salesman. You've got a good funding. You will have people who do do it. We'll see if you're sharp or not. That's, very process oriented and outcome oriented. But don't make it like you're holier than thou. I'm going to be better than the touts. I'm not Vegas insider. I'm not Vegas Dave. I mean, yeah, you're not bottom of the barrel. That's not a low bar, dude. Like, just because I'm not Bernie Madoff doesn't make me the king of Morgan Stanley. Like, it really doesn't.
Right.
What are you trying to prove?
If I'm the nicest
superiority?
murderer, I still kill people.
That doesn't prove much. You could have just come out and said, I'm going to tout, I'm going to try to do it more responsibly, but don't go on this like huge blitz about how everything in the industry is crap and you're the second coming, yeah, and you're like, the second coming of God, and that stuff is unnecessary. So this whole narrative that he wanted to generate, I hope it doesn't work in the sports industry, but there's always the biggest idiot. So I guess we'll just see. If he comes back and says 95% of my business now is sports consulting, we just might give up. Like we'll stop doing this show. We'll just like do what he did. We'll get a bunch of money. We'll tell Scott to take his money and just like put up another website. So if this actually takes off, I would rethink my career. I'm just kidding. But it's just like I don't get it. I don't understand it. But you're right. It's uninteresting. It's over, and hopefully we don't ever have to hear about him again. Because based on the record, I don't think he's going to be a force in the betting market by a mile.
Right. And just to kind of tie up all of this, so like obviously I think everything that we've said is sort of aligned to a certain standpoint, but just the thing that makes me not sad about this, but just sort of reflective is that there are a lot of people that are getting very interested in sports betting, and what they I think would like even subconsciously, and they probably don't even realize it, is like the sharing of information is valuable and is a really good idea, and like you should connect with other people who have valuable information, and you should reach out and ask them and learn and explore and all those kind of things. And the presence of companies like this and the presence of people like this actually like inhibits everyone's ability to enjoy sports betting more like authentically and more organically through just conversation and sharing of information, and honestly like content like this, which is just two people having a conversation essentially for free, which reveals things about the markets and stuff like that. Like there is really valuable information out there, but the places where people tend to go and how people tend to value information is, well, if it costs a lot of money, it must be really valuable. And in this space, things that cost a lot of money tend to be things that are shell games to a certain extent. Like companies are trying to get your money, and in return, they're not actually giving you things that are valuable. They're giving you things that they're telling you are valuable. And I feel bad. I feel, a sense of responsibility sometimes, honestly, where it's like, I'm in this space where there's constant fraud, where people are constantly being taken advantage of, and I still have to kind of exist in that space. That's a tough tightrope to walk, and it's hard to be, as kind of morally transparent as possible if you're in gambling media. So, if you're out there and you're interested in the space, you're just getting involved, or you're a casual bettor, I mean, that's millions of people who consume stuff like this. My advice is to always approach everything with sort of an air of skepticism. Why does this cost money? What am I getting out of it? Am I getting value, or is someone just what is everyone's motivation involved here? Like, use a little game theory, basically. Like, what is everyone's approach? And skepticism and sort of research and digging into kind of like everyone's motivations and backgrounds, that will ultimately lead you, I think, to make the smartest decisions possible if you choose to consume gambling content.
Right. That's totally the thing. And the thing with touts, what the touts have on their side, what the picks, the picking touts have on their side is the immediacy, is the laziness of it.
Yep.
I mean, even the show that we're doing here,
right? You play on people's readers.
It's a decent bar to ask you to sit through even like a 30-minute show where you listen to us talk. And I mean, I would understand if people don't want to do that, or don't trust us enough, or need to be like sort of eased into it. But I think and that's the difficult thing about this all, is because the immediacy of getting a Twitter notification and saying, here, bet this, it's just so appealing, especially to the raw, naive, just got into gambling people, that it's a tough battle to fight. And I think the battle against touts is one that is endless. and they'll keep popping up. I mean, they're on Instagram now because the clientele is younger and even more naive than usual, and they'll pay $25 a week and think they got good value just because they ran hot. It's an incredibly tough battle to fight, but Jambos and Michael Swimmer are dangerous because he has money behind him and he has influence behind him, and he can buy reporters and he can get his PR. And just because the funniest thing I see is people like RJ Bell or Vegas Dave, like the worst touts out there, they have on their profile like as seen on CNBC. I'm just like, CNBC has nothing to do with sports gambling. I don't. In fact, if you've been on CNBC, I don't want to listen to you because you don't know anything. I mean, I want to have you invest for my pension, but I don't want you to like get for me. So it's the funniest thing when they go like SG on CNBC and Fox and CNN, and I'm like, yeah, all these places that have nothing to do with sports gambling, they do a great job. So it's a tough battle to fight, but Swimmer, in my opinion, I even heard of it, and it's just dangerous because he fishes you. It's a fishing game, right? It's like fishing in real life.
Yep. Absolutely. I think I think we could go forever on this, to be honest. I think it's such a fascinating topic, and look forward to kind of exploring it more. Obviously, hopefully, I would love to say hopefully we don't have more examples of this, but I think we know we do. And for people out there, again,
it's going to come.
Use your head, ask skeptical, ask a lot of questions, and I think you're ultimately going to arrive at the right conclusion. So that's going to do it for this episode. In the Crosshairs, presented by Line Sniper. I'm Ken Barkley, Lockie Lockerson. For Dr. Odds and Lockie, we will see you next time.